spend my Mondays at a venture capital firm called Moore David Howe Ventures, and I spend most of my time, historically I spend most of my time in the enterprise IT space. And the enterprise IT space has been a little quiet in the past decade, and I don't think it's going to stay quiet. And I want to talk about where it's going, and in particular how it will relate to some of the policy issues that the this Innovation Summit is dealing with around, the creation of jobs, creation of work, the whole American competitive advantage footprint in a changing world. And so the agenda is going to start with something that I think I know something about, which is the future of enterprise IT. And then I'm going to do some speculating about the future of work, which is speculation. But I'm Irish, and we're good at speculation. That's one of our strongest strengths. So this is kind of where it's going to head. We'll talk a little bit about something called systems of record, meet systems of engagement, and this thing that some people are calling the consumerization of enterprise IT. I think it's a very big deal, and I want to tell you why I think it's a big deal. But I also want to talk about how it's going to reshape, and how it is reshaping already, the future of work, and how the implications of that for where you invest in talent, what does it mean to create employment in the United States in this century, because I don't think it means the same thing it meant in the last century. And I think some of the challenges of public policy is that we have residual mental models about how do you create a strong society around job creation that are wrong. And I think we got to sort of adjust them in real time. So that's kind of where this thing is headed. Okay, enterprise IT, the current state, systems of record are largely complete. So systems of record are all the database systems that we spent, decade after decade after decade creating, first for mainframes, then for mini computers, then for client server, then for internet-enabled SaaS. And it started with financial systems, and then it went to HR systems, and then it went to order processing and inventory management, and then it went to customer relationship management and supply chain management, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we did it, all the way across and all the way down. And by the end of the decade, we had pretty much spent about $1 trillion, maybe a little bit more. So there were data centers everywhere, and they were designed essentially to run transaction systems on behalf of large and then increasingly medium and then eventually small businesses. It was all about online transaction processing. The relational database was the center of the universe. You talked about data, you talked about information. That was where everything converged. And the network was only a transport mechanism to get data from one place to another place. That's sort of the world of that world. And business intelligence was intended to help you mine the data to try to understand what was going on. And then, if that weren't enough, we had Y2K come along, so we did it all one extra time, right? And that led to a sort of a collective, sort of feasting that was then followed by a prolonged belch called the tech bubble bursting. And when the tech bubble burst, we kind of dissipated all of that, and we kind of came back to the table, it was a new world. It was a new world because, in a very large sense, the systems of record were done. Now, they're never done. But it was like the interstate highway system, which was one of the great national initiatives of my grandparents and my parents' generation. It's done. We maintain the interstate highway system, but nobody's like, we're in the interstate highway system business. That's not where the focus of investment is, and hasn't been for decades. I would make the claim that that's where we are with systems of engagement. That's why it's consolidating. That's why you have SAP and Oracle as the two major players, because we're kind of done. And what this last decade has been in the enterprise, because there has been investment and there has been returns, it's been largely on economizing against that footprint. Virtualization, the whole VMware extended model has been dramatically impactful in this decade, but that's an optimization play to extract unused resources from the system. So enterprise IT, I would submit to you, for the last decade has largely been on hold, but meanwhile, consumer IT has been on fire, right? I mean, our industry does not lack for superlatives or superlative comparisons, but honest to God, this is as transformative as anything imaginable in human history. And I think it's fair to call it the digitization of all human culture. Not just books, not just movies, not just music, not just, personal communications with each other. We've digitized financial services, we're digitizing healthcare services, we're digitizing educational services, we're digitizing crime, we're digitizing warfare. I mean, it used to be you said, well, I have a digital life and an analog life, or You don't. You now are leading a digitally mediated life, period. And you cannot negotiate life in this current century without digital mediation. So if you think about what happened, I mean, that was not true 15 years ago. So you say, well, what are the pillars of that change? And there are three of them. The first one was the internet and the web, and this unbelievable experience of access, where all of a sudden, literally anything can be answered via Google or this new thing, I think it's called Bing. Yeah. Okay, and even occasionally a Yahoo search thrown in on the side. Okay, but the point is, and this access isn't just for us. I mean, this access is touching the planet. This access is causing regimes to totter and potentially topple in the Middle East. And it's creating, waves of shock throughout every economy and every culture in the world. So it's huge, and it is deeply and inherently democratic in a way that is just highly disruptive to totalitarian regimes of any kind. Then we added broadband. What broadband does is it takes it from being a medium for the mind and makes it a medium for the heart and the soul. So what social networking is all about is not about information. It's about pictures, either moving or not, some of which you would like to endorse, some of which you would like not to endorse. But they're there, and they're there now forever. And the point is this has become an emotional medium, which means it can galvanize people. When you see pictures on the internet of the Japanese earthquake, or the nuclear thing, or the rise in Tiananmen Square or in Egypt or Libya, or all this stuff, it's deeply emotional, which means the planet is now resonating much faster than it could ever before. And then the third thing is it's mobile, which means it's omnipresent.